the types of objections. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff. No salespeople. We're all set. Not interested. I forwarded this over to the right person. We already have a solution. Whatever it is, we can really fit most of objections into two categories. Okay. The first thing that we need to answer is the objection to being interrupted. Okay. So, and this especially applies during a cold call, let's say, right? The reason why I'm mentioning cold calling is it's the same stuff as cold email. It's the same stuff as LinkedIn. It's just that with cold calling, you get to actually talk to the person, right? There's dialogue back and forth. My first sales job, by the way, was going door to door selling house painting services in college. That was back in 2008 as a freshman in college, and that was, I don't know if anyone's done door to door. That was brutal. Also learned a lot too. But the biggest objection people have is being interrupted. So what I mean by that is that when you call someone on the phone, I think we'd all agree here that the person doesn't answer the phone thinking it's a salesperson. They usually think it's someone else, right? Doctor, their school, someone from work, like something else more important than taking a random call from someone trying to sell them something, right? It's the same thing with email. When people get emails from people that they don't want, the natural instinctual reaction is this could not possibly be something that I would be interested in because 99% of the stuff that hits my inbox is like spam, or it's not personalized, or it's not relevant, whatever it might be. So just know that really the objection 90 plus percent of the time is going to be I'm just objecting to getting a random email from a stranger. So it's not really an actual objection that you could deal with, it's an objection to the interruption. Okay, that's the first type. The second type is I call it time value trade. Time value trade is essentially when someone gives you an objection like we're already taken care of, we have a solution. The objection that you need to handle is not why they should consider talking to you or why your solution is different or better. The thing that you need to answer for the prospect is why it would be worth spending more time interacting with you. So, in other words, Jason, if I took a meeting with you, why would that be worth 15 to 30 minutes of my time? What am I going to take away from that? Okay, and I want to give you guys a practical example here because this will help with the objections. I would love a volunteer here again. Who here can tell me what is the value that a prospect gets in meeting with you for the first time in that first sales meeting that has nothing to do with pitching your solution, your product, or your service? Another way of asking that question is if I took a meeting with, like, if I took a meeting with you, what would I learn from interacting with you? An example of that is if a sales leader decides to engage in a sales process with me, they're going to learn about how some of the fastest growing software companies in the entire world get their AEs to prospect. They're going to learn about what they use in their sequencing, how they get the messaging to pop, how they handle objections. That's the stuff I'm going to teach them before they even become a client. Does anyone here have prospects that are dealing with economy related issues like the recession? Yeah. So if I'm a sales agency, that might be a twist too. That could be a call to action. Hey, if nothing else, I'd love to share with you how companies like A and B are generating leads through a recession, or growing their pipeline through a recession, or getting responses and booking meetings for their sales team through a recession. There's like economy based language that you guys can use too. So, this, when someone says we're all set, or, we do most of our appointment setting in house, we have SDRs, I'm not going to try to convince them about why my sales agency is better, why they should consider it. I'm going to say, hey, it sounds like you're taken care of. I could send this through an email too, by the way. I figured you already had something in place. The reason I was giving you a call is I wanted to share how companies like Gong and Medallia are generating pipeline through a recession. If nothing else, you'll get some ideas from that. That is the reason, that's the hook to hop on a meeting with me, is to learn. Now, if you have a sales process where you're not teaching prospects things, that's something to really think about. What could I learn? If I decide to hop on a call with you, what am I going to learn about what my best in class peers are doing? Henry Schuck, the guy I was telling you about earlier, CEO of Zoom Info, that's the number one thing he wants to learn is what are the best in class companies doing that I could get Zoom Info to do. All right, so really, really think about that. What are the insights, the world class insights that you can share with them? Because most of your prospects, they want to be world class, they want to be best in category. So think about that. That's the objection that we need to handle. So it's either I need to handle the objection of being interrupted and acknowledge that I'm interrupting them, or I need to acknowledge, instead of talking about why my solution is better, I need to acknowledge why it would be worth them spending more time with me. So how do we do that is the question. So simple framework. I call it Evo. All right, there's three parts, and then we're going to kind of unpack this. And then what's really cool, if you guys have already looked at the document, I got a ton of pre-made templates for you guys that you can just start using. So it's empathize, validate, and then offer. So when I do these two things, when I empathize with someone and validate where they're coming from, it has a pretty awesome effect. It's very disarming. And depending on the context, it might help me understand their situation a little bit better. So the way that we empathize with someone is by acknowledging what they might be thinking or feeling. Okay? Let's start with an easy one. Let's start with not interested. So if someone replies to an email and says not interested, or if someone over the phone, because it really isn't, there isn't too much of a difference between the two, to empathize with them, what I want to acknowledge is what that person might be thinking, but not saying. So think about when you tell a salesperson not interested, there's so much more under the hood going on than that, than you not being interested. That isn't really a very logical reason. There's usually something underneath that. And I'd love just a little bit of engagement here. What's a prospect thinking? If they say not interested, what are they thinking but not saying? We have a volunteer or two. I'd love to call on a person or two. What's a person thinking but not saying when they say not interested?
Yeah, Nick will answer.
I'm busy. I'm busy. It's sort of like I'm giving this zero thought right now.
Yeah. I'm busy. This is not important, right? Not important, relevant. I forget who the woman was earlier, but she had mentioned something around, um, God, it wasn't busy. It wasn't important, relevant. Oh, it was basically not another salesperson. I don't talk to salespeople.
Yeah, so Lada actually wanted to add something.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Maybe your product is too expensive for me now. Like, not interested.
Yeah, so, hey, I'm good. Uh, this is too expensive. So there's all kinds of stuff that this person might be thinking, right? So in order to empathize with them, I always like to just use a statement that starts with this: sounds like, right? And if it's email, I might use looks like, right? So all I'm going to do is just acknowledge what they said. And I need to add a little bit of color and commentary behind that to acknowledge what they might be thinking, but not saying. So if a prospect said this to me over the phone, I'd say, sounds like I caught you in the middle of something, which is totally understandable because I'm calling you out of the blue. I'm letting them know it's okay if they are not interested. I don't know if anyone has experienced this in your personal life. I've gone to a lot of therapy. I still go to therapy, and couples therapy I've gone to a lot of too with my wife, Sarah. And one of the things that I had to learn how to do that was just like a huge weakness of mine is just to have empathy for someone and to acknowledge what they just said. You know, a really silly example of that was we used to live in Texas, and bugs are a really big thing in Texas. So I would have to spray this bug spray over the entire house outside to keep mosquitoes away. And I forgot to do it one time. And my wife Sarah was really frustrated. And she's like, "Dude, did you forget to spray the bug spray?" And then we just got in an argument. all I had to do was just empathize with her and just validate her question and concern and her frustration and say, hey, it sounds like you're a little frustrated because I didn't follow through on the thing that I said I was going to do. I totally understand where you're coming from. Like, situation would have been like de-escalated quickly, right? Now, when we're prospecting, it's the same kind of thing. Obviously, we don't have a relationship dynamic with our prospect. But if I can acknowledge what they just said, oftentimes it's like, okay, cool. This person's not trying to argue with me. They're acknowledging what I said. That's all I got to do. Not interested. Hey, sounds like you might be taken care of. Sounds like you might be in the middle of something. Totally understandable since I'm calling you out of the blue or I'm emailing you out of the blue, whatever variation of that, okay? So sounds like I'm going to acknowledge what I heard and let them know that it's okay if they don't want to talk to me. When you do that, it is crazy. It has this effect on people where it's like, oh, okay, what do you got? I need to do that first before I go in for this piece. The offer is my ask. So there's this saying in sales, and I'll write it down. People buy based off emotion and then justify with logic. Buy based on emotion, justify with logic. I need to engage the prospect from an emotional standpoint first before I can talk the logical. Because most people are pretty fired up when they get an email from someone they didn't ask to get emailed from or a call. They're pretty fired up. I have to acknowledge that first in order to talk logically to them about why my solution might be helpful or why they might want to know what a competitor is doing or whatever the variation of that, okay? So empathize, validate, offer. Also a good personal skill if you need help in that area, which I have gotten a lot of over the years. This is might feel like a very bold move for some of you. I'm going to pick up the phone and call them. Now, what do we think a prospect might be thinking if they just responded not interested to an email and then they get a phone call from you? They might be thinking, okay, what the heck does this person want? Don't they know that I told them not interested? Like, why the heck is this person calling me? So I'm just going to acknowledge that. Yeah, hey, Joe, it's Jason with Outbound Squad. You responded to my email earlier. Look, I know you said that you weren't interested and totally okay if this is not a fit. That I was giving you a call because we're doing some work with companies like A and B, and I thought you might want to know how they're accomplishing XYZ result. Is that something you'd be down to get into, or is this not a fit? Either way, totally okay. You just got to see how we approach that. It's like, I'm going to acknowledge what they said, and you know what? Half the time, you can have a really good conversation and get a meeting. It's pretty crazy. The not interested, it's a reflexive response most of the time from people. They may not have even taken the time to read your email or look at your company or anything. They just see an email from a stranger. Oh, not interested. All right. So I'm going to pick up the phone and call them. The other thing I can do too, because I noticed just in the document that was submitted to me, some of the challenges that you guys are having, low email reply rates are positive reply rates, excuse me. So if you're getting a lot of unsubscribes or not interested, you know what's really good to do is just pick up the phone and just ask the prospect for feedback. Hey, Katie, it's Jason from Outbound Squad. I sent you an email earlier. You replied, not interested. Totally okay. Do you mind, just so I don't waste someone like yours time in the future, would you mind giving me feedback? What could I have mentioned in the email that would be top of mind for you? You'd be surprised when you ask for feedback like that, how many prospects will give you really, really good feedback. And they'll say, you know what? I don't care about my account executives prospecting. That's not a focus for us at all. What I do care about is this. And sometimes, again, you can flip those around and get meetings from it. But I think the point here is don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call someone that responds to an email. That's the very, very first thing that I would do. Anytime someone replies to an email, even if it's, sure, send me more information, I'm going to immediately pick up the phone and call them because things happen way faster over the phone. We have a whole generation, and I'm not that old. I'm 33 years old. There's a whole generation of sellers that just didn't grow up using the phone. You know what I mean? Like people in their 20s typically, you probably didn't use the phone as much as I did, or even people older than me growing up. So maybe it's a tool that you're just not as used to. The phone is the fastest way to make things happen. So I'm always going to call the person when they reply. It's the fastest way to make something happen. And if the person says not interested, let's say they don't pick up the phone, I'm just going to send this short email back. Hey, thanks for letting me know. Got it. Sounds like you're all set. You get that? Empathize, right? It's disarming. Mind letting me know if this is terrible timing or if I'm just wildly off base. And a lot of times you'll get really good responses to this. This isn't a focus, but this is, hey, timing's bad. We just brought on a tool like this. When they give us feedback here, hey, thanks so much for letting me know. Sounds like you're all set. I don't want to be a pest, but I did reach out to you because, and you're going to share a customer story. You looked a lot like another company that we're working with that was dealing with these challenges. Here's how we help them. Let me know if this is interesting. That's the time value part of the objections that we talked about. I'm letting you know we've worked with a similar customer who wanted to accomplish something like this, that was running into this problem, thought we might be able to help, thought you might be interested in some of those insights. That's the framework that we're going to leverage. And there's some specific wording in here where you guys can kind of fill in the blanks with that. But that's how we might handle something like not interested. There's a couple variations of templates you can start using in here. There's also working with a competitor, right? Someone that says, we're already working with your competitor. We're working with another solution. So this is where in Europe, I would adjust this language. Instead of, would it hurt to hear how companies, would you be interested in hearing how companies like these ones and these ones are overcoming this problem? Everything messaging wise needs to be about outcomes and problems. Don't talk about your solution. Talk about what another company, a problem that that individual was running into, and what they did to solve it. It gets the conversation above features and benefits, which especially if you're reaching out to large companies where you're reaching out to executives, they care all about outcomes and priorities. They don't care about features and benefits. And there's a bunch of other examples in here. So we have about 10 minutes left. I want to kind of just open the rest of this up for Q&A. So what I can do is I'm happy to dig in more with specific objections.